There are rules of conversation. If I'm asking you a question about a particular person and you are answering in certain ways, this is a senior detective and she looks like she's standing in front of a moving train. Like, look at how afraid she is. What is happening?
We're in there getting supplies. So we wanted to afford you some privacy.
I disagree. I think that a lot of the times when you're trying to evaluate if somebody doesn't know something or is being not truthful, the most immediate thing you look at is, well, what did they say? What did they lie about? Oftentimes, if you take like one step back and you instead try to think of what didn't they say, or
29-year-old nurse Sherri Rasmussen was found by her husband lying dead on the living room floor. Her face was severely beaten and disfigured to the point that she was unrecognizable. Most of Sherri's injuries were inflicted upon her after she was killed, which was concluded due to the lack of hemorrhaging and inflammation of the injuries. This included most of the victim's facial injuries and even a bite mark on her left forearm. The homicide detectives assigned to the case immediately associated Sherri's murder with multiple break-ins that had occurred that same night on the same street. Another woman had even been assaulted and was able to give a description of two assailants, and this description became the sole focus of the investigation into Sherri's murder. The prime suspects were now two middle-aged Latino males of medium height and build. They were never found, and the case went unsolved for 23 years. By 2009, crime in Los Angeles had declined enough from its earlier levels that detectives began looking into cold cases to increase their clearance rates, which is when the Rasmussen files resurfaced. New methods of genetic analysis discovered that the DNA found at the crime scene pointed to a single female suspect. It was soon discovered that a statement given by Sherri's father, of whom he thought to be the prime suspect, was quickly brushed to one side, as the person in question was a serving LAPD cop from the exact department who were investigating the case. The person in question was a woman by the name of Stephanie Lazarus. She was a 25-year-old police officer at the time who had been with the force for 2 years. She had dated Sherri's husband, John Rutten, in an on and off relationship throughout college and for a short time after. It was even discovered that John had slept with Lazarus after he became engaged, and the two even dated for a while after Sherri's murder. She was now a 25-year veteran of the police force and had worked her way up to a senior detective of the Commercial Crimes Division. Within 24 hours of becoming the prime suspect, a coffee cup she discarded while off duty was received by police. A DNA sample was then taken, and it came up as an exact match to the DNA found on Sherri Rasmussen's bite mark.
Wait, can somebody walk me through that? How can you can't actually just get random people's DNA without like some kind of cause, can you? Is this legal?
The following interrogation is a legitimate testimony into how watching an interrogation is a world apart from being subjected to one. You can know every technique in the book and each specific strategy and subtle scenario that goes along with it, but ultimately, you have no idea how you're going to react to a specific situation until you're actually in it.
This is very, 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 very true of almost every, or in my opinion at least, of almost every psychological phenomenon. Just because you understand how something impacts somebody doesn't mean that you are resistant to it. Something that people aren't aware of is there's a difference between like having an idea about something and being deliberate about an idea about something. Here's an example. So here's like a common trick. We've talked about this a million times. I've said this before. If you ask somebody questions about themselves, it makes that person feel really good, and it gives that person like a good impression of a conversation they're having with you. I am very aware of this. I know this. You guys should know this because I've repeated it like 50 million times on stream. But when people still do it to me, it still feels good. I still like it when people ask me questions about myself. It still makes me feel like I'm having a good conversation. Just because I'm aware of this knowledge doesn't somehow make me like impervious or resistant. Like, oh, well, I know what the goal of this is, right? Unless I'm being deliberate about that. Unless I'm in a conversation with somebody that I know is trying to manipulate me or is trying to leave an impression, then in a more deliberate manner, it might be like, okay, well, I see what's going on here. I know what you're trying to do. Okay, fuck you, motherfucker. I know, blah, 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 right? There needs to be a deliberance, like you are actually trying to achieve or affect a certain end in order to either be resistant towards something or to be aware of something and not let it affect you. Just knowing about it isn't enough.
With that being said, knowing these tactics can still give an individual...
Hold on. It's like how military are prepared for torture, right? They don't teach you how to be immune. They just teach you to resist for as long as possible. My understanding, I don't know how many special forces people we have in chat. My understanding is that all of the ideas behind like, well, how you do resist torture, like the information you give and blah, 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 that all of that is not true. I think my understanding is that in the military, if you're captured, they just consider all the information compromised. That's my understanding. They don't expect that like you're going to be some fucking secret agent like that can resist blah 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 or whatever. That like basically once you're captured, whatever information you have is just considered like compromised, and then they. Yeah.
Individual some form of advantage with regards to awareness, the investigators knew that their initial confrontation with Lazarus could in no way resemble a traditional interrogation, nor be officially classified as one, and there were two reasons for this. The first was that Stephanie would be wise to the fact that her best option would be to request legal counsel right away and end the procedure immediately. The second was that Stephanie was not about to be read her Miranda rights before being asked questions related to the investigation. A defense team could easily make anything she divulged inadmissible in court. Yet this was classed as a simple discussion between two parties, and the footage that was captured on a hidden camera was able to be submitted as evidence under surveillance footage rather than interrogation footage.
Wicked Supreme says, leadership might consider the info compromised, but they also train you to hold out in CERE training. Destiny, my Adreno says, Destiny correct. In fact, they offer waterboarding and training to prove you will only resist for so long. Okay.
Detectives created a ruse, inviting Stephanie to come in and advise them on a case involving stolen art. Knowing they were dealing with one of their own, they rehearsed and prepared for the interview more than anything they had done before. Their plan of attack was to keep the conversation as casual as possible for as long as possible, and carefully waited for the key moments to initiate the confrontation.
I don't want to talk about this in the squadron because I don't know who people are listening, and if we go to my side, everybody's always wondering what everybody else is doing.
No problem.
Okay?
The first thing the detectives do is set up a compatible tone with the suspect. She has just stepped foot inside an interrogation room, and the detectives negate the negative implications of such an environment through a friendly disposition. Consultative meetings, such as seeking advice over an art theft, can take place anywhere, and the last place detectives would choose to spend more time in would be an interrogation room. The reason they give the suspect for meeting in such an unusual location is to not spread rumors or innuendo. Yet the real reason is that all firearms have to be checked in before entering the area, and they needed the suspect to give up her gun without alerting suspicion.
But like we're talking about being busy and stuff, we've been assigned a case that we've been looking at.
Okay.
It's a new case, and reviewing the case, there's some notes to see as far as your name being mentioned.
Okay.
Do you know John Rutan?
Try and imagine for one moment that you savagely murdered a love rival in a jealous rage. Over 2 decades had passed since the act. Then all of a sudden, you're brought to an interrogation room and sat directly opposite 2 senior investigators who bring up the name of the man you committed first-degree homicide for.
John Rutan?
Rutan.
The investigators already knew how to say John Rutan's name correctly. The mispronunciation was a simple strategy to see how the suspect would react. Setting aside the element of the murder, John Rutan was the second longest relationship in Stephanie's life, and a psychiatrist later stated that this pause was 4 times as long as it should have been. She was already being deceptive by acting as if she hadn't thought about that name for so long.
Everybody, fedoras out. Tip, tip, tippity, tip, tip. Everybody get your fedoras out, okay? Something that they do really well in Death Note, in my opinion, the writing in that show between L and Light shows how 2 intelligent people would lie and not lie to each other. And I like the deliberation that goes on in Light's head when he realizes that L is trying to trap him, but he has to give a certain answer a certain way because to not do so would just be so unbelievably stupid. Where I think there are multiple times in that show where Elle asks him, like, what do you think about this here from, what do you think about Kira doing this? And it's tempting for Light to just be a dipshit and be like, I don't know.
Would you mind submitting yourself to a test of your deductive reasoning skills?
Sure, why not? Sounds like fun.
All right, then. We can begin by taking a look at these. Photographs of 3 notes written by prison inmates while under Kira's control just prior to their deaths. None of this information has been made public. You can take as long as you want to look them over. Please let me know what you think.
Very interesting. Come on, this is child's play. There's a print number on the back of each of these photographs. If I ignored this fact and was still able to come up with the phrase, "El, do you know, gods of death love apples," what would that mean? Clearly, if I read it the way Kira intended on my first attempt, I'd only look more suspicious. But the fact that I'm able to solve this silly code isn't enough on its own to prove that I'm Kira. It would be quite amazing to learn that not only could Kidda kill others, but could also control his victims' actions. I think Kidda wrote these, and it seems he's encoded a message for you as well, almost as if he's mocking you. If you line these notes up side by side and take a look at the first letter of every line, it reveals a message. Rearranging it like this gives you L, do you know? Gods of death love apples. But there are obvious print numbers on the back of all these photographs. Arrange it in that order, we get L, do you know? Love apples, gods of death. That doesn't sound right. And based on that, it's hard to believe that Kidda would have wanted you to read it this way.
That's incorrect.
Huh?
The thing is, there were actually 4 photographs. When we add this one, it reads, L, do you know? Gods of death who love apples have red hands.
It's a fake. I never made any criminal write the letter in this 4th picture. Is he stupid? But seeing as I only had 3 photographs to work with, my deduction was perfect.
No, it wasn't. The truth is, there were 4 of them. If you'd figured that out, it would have been perfect. Even though you knew the message was incomplete, you decided that there were only 3 notes. You never even considered that there might be a 4th. What do you make of that?
But he is also intelligent and deductive, and he's going to have to, like, deduce the correct answer, and that kind of makes him look guilty, but it also doesn't. It would make him look more guilty to get the wrong, right? So when somebody's like, here, like, do you remember this guy that you, dated or had a relationship with for, do I remember that guy? Yeah, like, yeah, no fucking shit, right? Come on, don't be so stupid, right?
Having reason for her prolonged reflection, when in reality, the name John Rutten was engraved in her memory, and even when slightly mispronounced, it would have most likely taken milliseconds for her to realize exactly who the detectives were referring to.
Right.
Oh, yeah, I went to school with him.
You did?
Yeah.
How long did you know him?
Gosh, I went to school in, went to UCLA in 1978 I started, and, met him at school at the dorms.
Mm-hmm.
She says she met him in the dorms, yet left out the fact that they had dated for 4 years and went on numerous holidays together. Even though she wasn't asked directly, a truthful subject would most often volunteer this information without having to be pressed for it.
Were you guys friends?
This is gonna sound real tip-tippy, okay? If I'm talking to somebody and there are rules of conversation where, I don't know how to phrase this. If I'm asking you a question about a particular person and you are answering in certain ways, it's very obvious that you're trying to hide something. I don't know how I could give voice to a rule about this. It's just a thing that you can feel. So let's say that I talk to somebody. I'll give a similar example of this. Let's say I'm talking to Jessica, and I say, Jessica, you know James, right? Have you guys ever talked before, or were you friends or whatever? And Jessica's like, James, yeah, we used to talk on Discord before, but I know that these 2 people were married for 5 years. I'm like, later on, you can be like, why didn't you tell you were married? And they might say something like, oh, well, you didn't ask. But the real truth is if you were married for 5 years and somebody asked you about that person, you would immediately volunteer that information. You would just say oh yeah, I was married to that guy for 5 years. The fact that you are not volunteering that information means that there is a deliberate and specific reason why you're not doing it. So are you lying because you're trying to misrepresent your relationship status with him, your availability to me, are you embarrassed? Are you ashamed, right? There's a reason why they're not volunteering that type of information. I think this is probably one of the most common ways that I find out somebody is lying about something. I usually don't ask directly, did you lie about this or blah, blah, blah. Usually it'll be what did you think about this thing, or what did you do with this person or whatever. And usually if people give really evasive answers, but you know more information and you know they should volunteer it, then it's okay, why? I'm so curious why you're lying about this, right? But you shouldn't confront people on lies. You just keep it in your pocket. But yeah, this is a really, really, really stupid thing that a lot of people do. And it fucks you hard.
Close friends?
Yeah, we're very close friends. I mean, what's this all about?
Well, it's a case we're working on. It involves John, and in there, some of the statements we reviewed, there's notes and stuff that he knew you and stuff.
Oh yeah, I mean, we were good friends. I lived in the dorms for 2 years.
You guys lived in the same dorm?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Dykstra.
Okay. Were you guys just friends or anything else, or?
Yeah, we were good friends.
Yeah. Was there ever any relationship or anything that developed between you guys?
Yeah, I mean, we dated, you know, I mean, what's this all about?
Well, it's relating to his wife.
It's unfortunate that
I feel like, and maybe this might just be me because I've got 20/20 hindsight now, and I know. Well, I don't, I guess, but I'm assuming because of the name of the video. Damn, does she sound guilty? What's this all about? Like, what the fuck? You sound a little jumpy, my dude. Damn, she's already like, God, fuck. I want to see some hard interrogations with some rough motherfuckers that know how to lie well, okay? Because Jesus Christ, I feel like this shit is already over. Now it's like, okay, well, what do we have to do to like finish this out? Because this motherfucker has already like just fucked up hard. Oh my God, this shit is over already.
Well, it's relating to his wife.
It's unfortunate that Stephanie's face wasn't captured at this moment, because she would have no doubt been immediately struck by the psychological reaction known as fight or flight. Her brain would have just triggered the influx of a specific cocktail of hormones in order to prepare her to either stay and deal with a threat or try and run away to safety. Stephanie chooses to fight.
Okay.
Okay. Did you know her?
Not really. I mean, I knew that he got married years ago.
Did you ever meet her?
Okay, this is a very nitpicky thing, okay? Fight or flight does not prepare you to have an argument, okay? Fight or flight prepares you to take some form of big physical action. So if you say like your fight and flight thing was activated and you choose to fight, that doesn't mean having an argument. That means that your adrenaline is pumping, your blood vessels are constricted, you've got hormones pumping that are enabling you to do some like physical thing, your lungs are opening up, right? That doesn't mean that you're ready to have an argument. Now this is super minor, it's not a big deal. It's probably just part of the style of the video, but I've had people use fight or flight in very incorrect ways before. Fight or flight refers to, you are dead wrong about that. What do you mean? No, I am absolutely correct about this. Fight or flight refers to that like adrenaline, is it sympathetic or parasympathetic nervous system response or whatever? That's fight or flight. You getting like nervous and having a conversation or whatever, that's not like I think like you can have like a flight or flight like physiological response, but when you say like, oh, they chose to fight or flight, like that is usually some physical exertion. It's not like just sitting there and be like, oh, I'm really nervous. I guess you can argue that's the response, but you're not fighting. Your body is not, when you have a fight or flight response, your body's not preparing you to have an argument. It's preparing for you to do some great physical exertion.
Hey dude, what's your favorite MCU film that you have seen?
Man, what a great question. What do you got? Do you want to talk about Iron Man or the Avengers Infinity War? I just want to have a whole conversation about superhero. Women don't always have the option to fight physically though, right? When you're, do we really want to Wikipedia this? When you have a fight or flight response, right? There is a whole thing that your nervous system goes through to prep your body to enact physically. That's what fight or flight is. Like your muscles will tense, you start sweating more so that you can cool your body, your lungs will open up, you begin breathing more. I think your stomach starts to feel weird as blood is drawn away from your digestive tract. Like all of this stuff. I think your pupils dilate so that you can see better. It's like a battle mode. Your body is transforming into a fight Gundam. Like that is a fight or flight, not like you're gonna have an argument, okay? Sorry. If you activate that response, you can't physically fight. Why is it wrong to say that would manifest? Okay, never mind. I'm done with this. I love you all.
I mean, I knew that he got married years ago.
Did you ever meet her?
God, I don't know.
Do you know who she was or anything?
Well,
Pausing donuts. You guys are triggering the fuck out of it.
I may have met her. Jeez.
The words gosh, God, gee are exclamatory remarks used to express surprise or strong emotion. You will see them used continuously throughout this interrogation, which is the suspect trying to insinuate a vague memory due to a lack of contemplation on the subject matter. She's trying to emit the impression that she would have had no reason to give any further thought to John or anything related to John since they stopped seeing each other over 2 decades ago.
You know.
Yeah. Well, let me see. Let me ask you. You said you dated John. How long did you guys date?
I mean, well, are you guys, is this something?
As we know, Stephanie is a cop and has been for 25 years. She will be...
Also, I'm sorry. I love you. Okay? And I love cops on this stream more than anybody else, okay? However, if there's an honest cop out there, okay, a lot of cops are dumb motherfuckers, okay? This is not the brightest of the bunch, okay? These are not our highest performing members of society, okay? Just because you're a cop does not mean that you are like some mentally impervious machine that like won't get fucking triggered out your ass, okay? 20% of cops get fucking triggered at traffic stops, okay? That does not guarantee that you're gonna have some mental shielding against these techniques or whatever. Especially, I'm also curious, they probably said this on in here. I wonder, what is she in terms of a cop? Was she actually like a detective? Oh, she was a detective. She was a senior detective. And she's already lost. She's already this fucking lost. What are we, 2.5 minutes? We're 2.5 minutes into the interrogation and it's already over. Now it's just formalities. Like, this motherfucker is a murderer. Holy shit. Like, top detective of art thievery. Okay, so maybe she's not used to dealing with like...
As we know, Stephanie is a cop and has been for 25 years. She will be wise to the fact that acting oblivious to the unusual development of the situation will be a glaring red flag in the eyes of the investigators. It's been shown time and again on this channel. Guilty suspects will often try and act naive to a blatant confrontation as a means to avoiding it altogether, whereas truthful subjects will address the confrontation and either refute it, or if it's subtle, want immediate clarification and transparency as to what was being insinuated.
I mean, you said I was going to interview somebody about art and how you guys are... I mean...
Stephanie, here's
the crazy thing, too, is that she's a detective, so she must know the answers that would unlock further parts of an interrogation that would enable them to either have probable cause to do further investigations, so beginning to... Like, dude, this case is so cold. You're on a 23-year closed case homicide. You're out. You've done it. You're gone. You must have thought in your head, what is some combination of stupid fucking things that I could say that would enable somebody to open this case? This is the coldest, closest 20-plus year homicide. This isn't an official interrogation. She doesn't know she's being recorded. Bro, come on. We're gonna take you in a room and ask you some questions. We're fucking cops. Like, no, come on, dude. You must have thought about this. Like, fuck. Like, I don't know. I feel like the microsecond, if I would have murdered someone in my past and I'm in a room casually and somebody brings up this person that was fucking murdered or that I paid somebody to murder or whatever, like, and somebody starts asking me questions about that, you better believe that, like, I'm about to slip into some shit that I've rehearsed every fucking year of my life up to this point. Because there's no way that I would let somebody open a case that fucking old and catch me. No way. And that's not even, I don't even think that would be exceptional to expect a senior detective to have rehearsed.
Situation is basically, we knew that this, when we saw this in this chrono, that maybe, there was some relationship there. That's what the chrono seemed to indicate.
The detective now subtly avoids the question altogether, but instead offers a deceptively reassuring response to the suspect. He makes a very sharp switch from the investigative subject matter to the previous topic of workplace rumors. He brings her focus back to the false perception of them being on her side. Stephanie had just asked what was going on, and now he essentially replies with, "We are your friends. We're doing you a favor."
And we didn't want to come up to you at your desk and ask those kinds of questions or do anything. You know how up there people can see what's going on if you go into an interview room or people...
This is a senior detective and she looks like she's standing in front of a moving train. Like, look at how afraid she is. What is happening?
Or in there getting supplies. Okay. So we wanted to afford you some privacy, some confidentiality to talk about this because we thought it might be, something, you're married to someone else, obviously, and so forth, and that you may not want to, talk about these things in that setting where someone, we don't want the rumor mill or gossip or any of that kind of stuff to start.
That's fine.
So we did this just as a means to try and speak to you in just a confidential place where where your business isn't out there for other people in your division to know about.
Whether it be shock or the total reluctance to accept the situation at hand, Stephanie warily accepts the reassuring response without further inquiry into her initial challenge. She instead falls back into her agenda of having a foggy memory with regard to the incriminating contents.
God, that's been a million years ago. I mean, what year is it now? 2009? I mean, I graduated in 82, yeah. We dated. I dated other guys.
I'll never forget when I graduated high school, because I graduated in 2007. You know what that means? That means that all of our graduation shit was fucking 007 themed. God, it was so garbage. Ugh.
I'm sure he dated other girls.
Well, let me ask you, roughly how long would you say you guys dated?
Oh, jeez. I couldn't even say. I mean...
Notice how she now goes on to over-explain things that don't require an explanation, and weren't even inquired about. It's a clear-cut indication of hyperarousal and a derivative of TMT, also known as terror management theory. The suspect will go off on unrelated tangents as means for gaining momentary relief. Going into detail about trivial things affords her a brief escape from the terrifying reality eventuating before her. This is a very common occurrence in interrogations where the suspect is facing serious charges, and psychiatrists believe it to be a subconscious coping mechanism.
I started school there in 78.
If you want a more realistic, I don't know if anybody's done this, but if you've ever lied, if you've ever lied to your parents about where were you last night, or did you go out when you weren't supposed to, or whatever, and they're like, what did you do yesterday? And you're like, well, after school, I was hanging out with Fred for a while. We're working on a biology science project. We have to do the entire inner workings of the cells and label all of the different organelles and everything. And his mom usually brings us, stuff to drink while we work on our project. And we've been working on it for 2 weeks. And you try to explain every fucking thing. It's funny. I wonder if this is related at all to when you're taking a test and you have an essay question and you don't know the answer and you just start fucking writing. And you've written a fucking 3-paragraph answer, and you've incorporated as much of the rest of the test as possible into your answer for the essay question, and you don't know what the fuck the actual answer is. Oh my god, dude! I feel like teachers would always give you credit for that. Oh my god. I was either a really good bullshitter or I had a lot of easy teachers, because goddamn, dude, when those essay questions came up at the end of the test, it was time to go back and use your light deductive logic to try to figure out how the fuck you can answer the question, incorporating all the multiple choice questions into it, anything possible. And then anytime a teacher would be like, why did you go off explaining, the way the Mayflower was built, when the question had to do with who was funding the first into America? And you're like, oh, well, I thought that's what the question was asking. And the teacher's like, I can only give you 75% credit for this answer. And you're like, well, thank you, because I knew 0% of the answer. So I really appreciate that, teach. Oh, man. Whew. Okay. Sorry. Back to this.
I started UCLA in 1978. Mm-hmm. I graduated in 82. I don't even remember what year he graduated, if it was a year or two before me.
Okay.
I think he was a little bit older than I was. Mm-hmm. I mean, I can't remember if he was born, let's say I'm born in 1960. I don't know if he was born in 58 or 59. I mean, I knew his parents. I knew his sister. His brother went to Northridge.
What is every piece of information that I could give you right now? Because I am panicking so fucking hard in this conversation. Jesus.
His sister spent the night at my house before. Obviously, I spent the night at his house before. He probably spent the night at my house before.
It doesn't really prove that you don't know the answer. It only indicates that you have high anxiety. I disagree. I think that a lot of the times when you're trying to evaluate if somebody doesn't know something or is being not truthful, usually what everybody looks at, the most immediate thing you look at is, well, what did they say? What did they say? What did they lie about? What did they lie about? Oftentimes, if you take one step back and you instead try to think of what didn't they say, or if a scenario had been different, what would they have said? That can give you really good insight into what is the other person's position. I can give you a really good political example of this. If somebody comes up and they say, I know for a fact that XYZ conspiracy theory is true, and I'm going to debate you on it, and you're like, okay, and they open the debate and their piece of evidence is incredibly shoddy, you know that their thing is bullshit. Because if that real good evidence existed, they'd be bringing it up. If they actually had some huge damning fact, you would be hearing about it a million times. This is how this little mental thing is usually how I evaluate sometimes how well I did in a debate. When I go into forums afterwards and it's just a bunch of people calling me the F slur or whatever other shit or whatever, I know that I did well. The reason why is because if I would have done poorly, everybody would be bringing that up instead. So after my Richard Wolff debate, if I would have been factually incorrect about a ton of things or anything, people would have been slamming me for it. Destiny thinks of this, or Destiny doesn't know about that. But that's not what people said. Instead, this was irresponsible. Destiny's just a dumb fuck. He shouldn't have had this debate with Wolf. It wasn't worth it. But because people go to that instead, it's like, oh, okay, well, if it would have been a little different, I think you would have said this. If it actually would have been how you're saying, you would have said this or that instead. The Fauci emails is another really good example. As soon as that kid brought up, like, well, look at this email that this guy sent that Fauci didn't respond to, like, if that's all you got, I'm sorry, but this is already over, right? What is it? If you don't have the facts, you pound the process. If you don't have the process, you pound the facts. If you don't have either, you pound the table. Or it's something like that. Yeah. But...
I don't...
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, because from what you're telling me is you guys dated while you were in college together, right?
Yeah, and probably after college. I can't... I'm trying to think when I met my husband. I met my husband when did I meet Scott? Let's see. I was teaching DARE, because I met Scott when I was teaching DARE up in Oregon. But we had long stopped, dating before that.
So you haven't talked to him for a long time?
Oh, I think I haven't talked to him in a long time. I couldn't even tell you when the last time I talked to him. I met Scott, I'm thinking in 92 maybe, April of 92. It was
Scott being your husband.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I was teaching DARE. Let's see, what year is this? We'll be married. I got married in 1996. I think I met Scott in 92. Prior to that, I couldn't tell you how long I had talked to John prior to that.
But since you met your husband, Scott, you haven't talked to him?
Is John
called me
the murderer?
Once or twice.
Did you pay somebody to do it?
Before we got married.
Right.
I moved to Simi in 1994 because I lost my house in the earthquake.
Oh, really?
No, she actually did it?
Honestly,
Okay.
I probably keep in contact with a few people from the dorms. We all lived on the 10th floor. There's...
Oh, John was the husband of the woman she killed.
About three or four people I keep in contact with. There's probably like 6 or 8 of us that were all really close.
Mm-hmm. And who are those people?
Oh, geez. Diana Basta. People I still keep... I haven't been in contact with her in a long time. Mm-hmm. What's this all about?
Well, let me ask you.
The suspect challenges the detectives for the second time, and once again, the question is avoided, but this time in a more confrontational manner, as the topic is maintained with no reassurance afforded. The detectives are ramping up the pressure in a very subtle, yet highly effective manner.
What ended the relationship between you and John?
It was kind of...
She's giving the demon mama exaggerated face. I was like, why would that matter? Why would you even ask that? What do you mean? How did the relationship end? Like, is that relevant to anything? Like, it's like this or it might be that actually, I guess, because I don't have a record of ever talking to this lady, or I don't have like a history of, maybe she always is like hyper exaggerated. That might be the case too. Maybe. I don't know. Maybe, but it doesn't look good. When I say doesn't look good, I don't mean like it looks bad, like physically. I just mean it makes her look really guilty. Like,
kind of a weird relationship. I mean, we dated. I can't say that he was my boyfriend. I don't know that he would consider me his girlfriend. We dated. We did things. I played sports in college. He played basketball. His brother played basketball. It just didn't work out. I mean, I don't know what to tell you. It was like I went out with other guys, saw other guys. I went on lots of vacations.
And once you guys split, were you guys still friends, or kind of, problems?
I mean,
is it friendly, not friendly?
No, I don't think it was not friendly. I mean, we were friendly. I know that we went to Hawaii at one point. Yeah, I mean,
And you were saying that
it's 2009 now.
Had you ever met his wife?
I may have.
Do you remember her name or anything, or? Or what she did for a living, or where she worked, or anything about her?
The suspect was just asked 3 consecutive questions relating to the victim. She was supposedly in a reflective state during all 3 of the questions, yet her facial expression completely changed for the 3rd one. This is because she was pretending to be in a state of reflection for the first 2 questions, as she already knew the answers, whereas for the 3rd question, she actually was in a state of reflection and was genuinely searching her memory for the correct response.
Had you ever met his wife?
I may have.
Do you remember her name or anything, or?
The 3rd question is about to be posed, and her focus is about to switch from pretending to be thinking to actually thinking.
Or what she did for a living, or where she worked, or anything about her?
Well, I think I'm going to say I think she was a nurse.
One thing that people are really bad about when it comes to these kind of like non-voluntary responses to things is people don't know what they actually look like. They only know like the exaggerated forms that you see, like maybe in a movie or something. So for instance, what does it look like when somebody's thinking about something? Most people would think that it's like, like some like hyper exaggerated thing, but that's not always what it looks like. And oftentimes if you're trying to fake like you look like a particular thing, or that you look like you're considering something, then like the exaggeratedness of that particular thing is going to give you away, like hardcore. I think like a really good example of this is so one of the biggest quote unquote lies that I will tell frequently is I used to do this, not as much now because I try to wake up. Back when my sleeping schedule was horrible, so I would pretend to be sleeping always. I don't want somebody to wake me up, and I don't ever want to be fucking woken up. Okay, just let me sleep. That's what I want to do. So I will say whatever, do whatever I need to do to remain sleeping. Okay, because I just want to sleep. All right. A lot of people will think that like if you look at somebody who's fake sleeping, oftentimes what will happen is their body will be completely stiff, and if they're really bad, they might even like, you can tell that there's like pressure around like their eyes being closed. But that's not what a normal sleeping person is like. Sleeping people will like, they'll move around a little bit. If you like touch them, they'll like, do this. They might, right? Sleeping people are a lot more quote unquote awake looking than like somebody that's fake sleeping. It is very, very, very easy in my opinion to figure out if somebody is fake sleeping. You can usually tell immediately. Like if you start touching someone, you're like, hey, are you awake? And they're just like, they're like, motherfucker, I know you're awake, okay? I'm not 7 years old. What the fuck is wrong with you? So yeah, people, I think that when people are trying to fake a certain emotion or whatever, like whether it's contemplation or, being sad or happy or confused or whatever, people will hardcore exaggerate that emotion because they think that's what it looks like normally. Oh, people never breathe right when trying to sleep. That's another thing that super sells it as well. If you're trying to fake being asleep, there's a sound that you make when you breathe. I don't know how to explain it, but if you let your tongue in the back of your mouth relax a lot more, there's a sound for when you're breathing more when you sound like you're asleep versus when you're awake. I don't know how to explain it, but that's also like a very real thing where you can tell that somebody is like asleep or not asleep. You'll hear the change in their breathing from to like a more like, it's not throaty. The shape inside your mouth when your tongue relaxes that will change for sure, 100%. Yeah, true. It can be like close to snoring almost, yeah.
Man, I can't remember how he said he met her. It's been so long ago.
Well, let me ask you, did you go to their wedding,
No, I didn't go to their wedding. No, did not go to their wedding. Couldn't even tell you what year he got married.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's been a million years ago. Again, I don't understand why you're talking about some guy I dated a million years ago.
Well, do you know what happened to his wife?
Yeah, I know she got killed.
You wouldn't need to be an expert in body language to recognize the unmitigated terror emanating from the suspect's face at this moment. She had just verbalized the victim's tragic demise for the first time in most likely over 2 decades.
What did you hear about that?
I saw a poster at work. I'm sure I spoke to him about it. I think I spoke to another friend of his about it.
And how did you first learn about that?
Jeez. Someone could have called me. I could have heard it at work.
I'm trying to think. I don't have the lived experience of being that old. I'm trying to imagine if somebody told me 20 years ago that somebody died that was like the wife of somebody that I dated for 4 years. Would I immediately remember that, or would that be something you'd have to like? I don't remember how I heard about it. I'm trying to remember if you like if you'd really like not know, but like, how did I hear about that? I'm not sure.
I think at one point there may have been a flyer or something.
It's possible.
I know a good friend of his.
Were you on the job back then when that happened?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I'm sure I was on the job. That's why I would have heard about it with the flyer. He had a good friend, Mike.
This is like when I'm debating somebody and I hear them like, I can, especially with Vosh, when I can feel like they're making up their position in real time. And it's like, well, yeah. I mean, of course I would have been working. Yeah, that's why, the flyer, when I was working, like you can tell that they're like in real time trying to discover the lie that they're telling.
Baldrick, Mike. You know.
But being that you're kind of used to see John, you know.
How did you hear about the towers falling? I think it was in homeroom, meaning that class wouldn't have started yet. Was it really that early? What time did the first tower get hit? I felt like I was in homeroom and we hadn't actually started classes yet. But that might have been, it was 9 a.m. Eastern. I think that what happened, so then it would have been 7:30 a.m. for me. I think that what happened was, I think that there was stuff on the radio playing, but nobody really knew what the fuck was happening until the hours rolled in, especially once the second plane hit. Because I think there was a lot of jabber on the radio about like maybe the plane hit a tower. People didn't know if it was an accident. It was a lot of talk about it, but it wasn't like a huge thing. When the second plane hit, then it was a huge thing. And then when 3 and 4 rolled in, man, my teachers were so upset that day. Everybody was really angsty. I remember that day. We were going from class to class, and none of the students really knew much. Some students would say like a lot of shit to like rile up the other kids. So I remember that I think my mom told me that if shit gets fucked, the president will fly to Offutt Air Force Base because it's like a centralized base in the United States, which is in Omaha, kind of. And I remember that some kid at school was saying that the president was coming to Omaha because there were nukes there, and we were going to start nuking everybody, and that we needed to be worried because we were going to get attacked, and everybody got really mad. That kid's name, I remember that kid's name, Dan. Not that Dan, but I remember that people were like getting scared and like crying and shit. But what grade were you in when it happened? I don't remember, actually. 7th grade? It couldn't be that. That'd be way too late, right? It was in 2001. I graduated high school in 2007. So it would have been 6 years before year 12. Yeah, maybe it would have been like 7th grade, yeah. It wasn't 5th grade, so it must have been 7th grade. I homeschooled 1 year in 6th grade. So it was 7th grade. I remember coming home from school and having to flip channel like 12 times where I found cartoons because all the channels had a big smoking tower on it. Damn. No, it was 8th grade for you? It might have been 8th. Why did you graduate in 70 or in 07 if you were born in 88? I don't fucking know. It was just when I went to school. I don't know. What was I? I think I was probably a little older in class because I think the cutoff for when you would go to school was in October. So I think if you were born in November or December, you would have been in the older part of your class. But if you were born in whatever the August, September, October, if you were like born in September or October, I think you would be like in the younger part of your class. Why did I homeschool for a year? Honest to God, because my sister was homeschooled completely, and I thought it was going to be an opportunity for me to play a lot of video games. And I played a lot of video games. I don't think I did anything that year when I was homeschooled. I don't know how the fuck I got back into 7th grade and then did honors classes and everything because I didn't do fuck all for my entire 6th grade year. I don't know how we did it, boys, but man, I played a lot of RuneScape, played a lot of video games, I played a lot of MUDs. I played a lot of video games that year. Holy shit. So I don't know what normal people do in 6th grade, but it seems like it wasn't a very important year of school, I guess. Holy shit. Why did I go back? I don't remember. I think I wanted to like socialize and shit again. I miss like being around people and stuff. What GPA did I graduate with? From Creighton Prep, my high school? I'd have to find my thing. I want to say it was like a 3.1 or a 3.2, which sounds impossibly high for me because I slacked so much. But I was in almost all AP or dual enrollment classes in my last year. So all of my GPAs were like really heavily weighted. And there was a lot of curving in some of those classes. So I got really lucky. Yeah, so somehow but I might have had like a 2.7. I don't remember. I think it was above a 3.0 because I think I got fucked because the scholarship started at 3.5 and I know it wasn't a 3.5. It was below that. So yeah, that was my weighted GPA. I don't know what my unweighted would have been. My unweighted was probably garbage, or below a 3.0. I shouldn't say garbage, but the worst high school kids were the ones that would weight their GPAs, but they would use a different scale. I don't know why people did this, but the girls' schools around us, Steven Crowder was the voice of Alan Powers in Arthur for a season or two. Is that true? That's so weird. The girls' schools would use a 4.6 scale. And they'd always brag about the GPA. Like, oh, I have a 4.2 GPA. But I was like, dude, no one fucking cares. Congratulate. You use a different scale, okay? Fuck you. Okay, sorry. Anyway, 30 minutes left.
Or anything between you and her?
8 separate witnesses testified that Stephanie had confronted Sherri at the hospital she worked at, while the two of them were reportedly in an intimate relationship with John. The confrontation was said to have been highly aggressive, and Stephanie had to be escorted off the premises by security. Reports stated that Stephanie was by far the more combative, and even made threats against Sherri's life.
You know, I don't know. I mean, it's been so many years. I mean, uncomfortable. I mean, I can't even remember if we had a conversation. I mean, we may have. I may have seen her at his apartment. Geez, how many years ago is that? I don't even know what year she, got killed.
Where was his apartment?
Notice her passive disposition as she gives the following truthful response.
On Roscoe.
Okay.
Yeah, Roscoe and east or west of...
Okay, Mooten and Dan are both bullying me a lot in DMs right now. I just want you guys to know that, okay?
So, either east or west of DeSoto.
Do you know where he moved after? Did he move after he got married, or do you know? Or
now notice how her disposition switches from passive to frantic as she once again pretends to have a vague memory.
I'm sure he did.
Did you know where he was living, or?
Somewhere in the valley.
After John's wife died, you said you may have been talking to him. Did your relationship start up again?
I would say no. Again, can you give me a year? I mean, this is like 2009.
She died in 1986?
Yeah, I think it was 86.
1986.
Okay. Like I said, I'm faintly remembering that I went to Hawaii with my friend Greg. Greg and I got certified for scuba diving. And I'm thinking that John met us there, meaning Greg and I.
I think to become, somebody correct me if I'm wrong, there's something you can become certified in with very, very, very little training. No, it's not scuba diving. I think it's piloting. I think you can get a pilot's license if you have like 50 hours of flight time. Like that's it. It's something really low. Like when I read it, I was like, wait, really? But maybe it's just because only like wealthy people have planes or something, or that's not like a common thing.
Randy may have dated a gal that Mike was dating, and then Randy broke up with that gal. I couldn't even tell you the gal's name, if I'm even thinking of the story right. And then I started dating Randy.
Yeah.
So again, I mean, not like I was a huge floozy or anything, but...
No.
As far as you recall, after John's wife died, did you start a relationship again with John, or dating casually, or anything like that?
Like I said, he met Greg and I in Hawaii. What island did we go to? I think the big island in Kauai.
tangent about the
when
big
you
island.
heard about
Kauai.
John's wife being killed, I mean, what was your reaction? I mean, when you thought you heard about it, what, through a friend or in a bulletin or
Either
something?
a friend or a bulletin. I called the family. I called maybe some of his friends that I knew, and I mean, obviously it shocked you. If I heard it at work, you know, which I may have, I faintly remember a bulletin going around, you know.
Do you know what the circumstances were regarding her death?
Geez,
No clue.
Back.
Brutally murdered.
I don't know if it was, you know, if it was a burglary or something. It's been so many years. I can faintly think that I may have saw a flyer.
Yeah.
May have had her picture on it. You know, that's why I say, if somebody had called me, I may not have known what her last name was. Maybe if you told me, I would remember it.
Do you remember the first name?
Sherri.
Wait, am I cuxing? Not anymore. You're good now.
From all the years, as far as you can remember, do you remember ever talking to her?
Well, I said earlier, you know, I mean, I may have, and now I'm thinking I may have gone to her and say, hey, you know what, is he dating you? He's bothering me, and so I'm thinking that we had a conversation about that, one or two maybe. It could have been three. I don't want to say I had 3 conversations with her.
No.
Like at her work or at their
Dude, she's
house?
losing it.
No, I'm thinking that he obviously must have told me where she worked. I'm thinking it was a hospital somewhere in LA, and I could have been, again, what year was that? Where was I working?
When you said, like, hey, you know, he's calling me, he needs to knock it off or what have you, I mean, was that civil? Was there, I mean,
no, there was not. I don't think there was anything. If the conversation lasted a few minutes, I can't even remember. And what is it like, we went out to lunch or anything?
Right, but there was no, like, arguments or fights
I
or
don't think
it didn't
so.
get heated or anything like
Not that I recall, no. I mean, I would think that would stand out, I would think. Now, again, that's not standing out in my mind.
So you didn't have any problems with her then?
No.
You didn't have any issues with her?
No, I mean...
But let me ask you. It seems like you didn't have any issue. Now, did she have an issue with you as far as... Because now you're telling her, hey, tell them to stop calling. Now, she's like, hey, you figure she'd be threatened by you.
I don't know. I mean...
From what you remember as far as when you talked to her, maybe you didn't take it as serious, but maybe, did she? Maybe she was bugged.
You mean, like, was she throwing things at me or something? Or,
well, no, just...
Throwing cardboard boxes?
You're trying to explain, like, hey, have him stop calling me, stop playing games.
I tell you, if the conversation... I couldn't even tell you how long the conversation... If you said, did it last a half an hour? Did it last 3 minutes? Did it last 20 minutes? I can't even remember. It's been so long ago.
So you would have gone... If it was en route to work, you more than likely would have gone to her work and had this discussion with her?
I mean, that's sounding familiar. I mean, that's, now that you guys are bringing this stuff up, that sounds familiar.
Now that I know that you know.
But again, I mean, what's this got to do with me dating him and, her getting killed? I mean, I don't have anything to do with it. And you got something that's, somebody said, whatever. I mean... Well,
like we said, we just literally got this the other day, and you're going through it.
Yeah.
And you see
your name. It's next door.
Right. And so, I mean, obviously, it's like we recognize the name, and we know that, you work next door to us, and so we're trying to get some background. We're trying to figure this out. I mean, this is from a long time ago.
Oh, I know. And
and things have been kind of slow for us, and so, Chief Beck has said, hey, I want you guys working. I don't want you just sitting around reading the paper.
Yeah.
So he's kind of pushing some older cases out even to the guys that work active cases because, and so we see this and we're just like, well, we want to talk to you about it, but of course, the only reason we did it here is because we're getting into some pretty personal stuff in your relationship.
My husband's on the job, and we've been married.
We don't want to take the risk. We don't want to take the risk. We're in one of those interview rooms, and even when the door closed, someone's going to get supplies and see us on a monitor, or hears or whatever.
No, I appreciate it. I mean, I appreciate it. Like I said,
that's where people go when there's orals. When they're doing orals, guys will go in there and try and watch. Like, what are the answers to the questions?
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So we just want to afford you the most privacy and confidentiality we could.
No, I appreciate it. Like I said, I mean, this goes way back, and I mean, it was very sad. Obviously...
Because I know you went to talk to her at the hospital regarding this issue with John, to, you know, kind of like, hey, you know, what's going to happen here with this thing? But would this ever have followed up to her house when you went to talk to her to say, hey, you know what?
I don't even know that I knew where they lived. You know, that's what I'm saying. I don't. If I knew where they lived and I'd been there, if it was for something social, I would. And I can't see how many times I saw her face to face. You know, he lived on Roscoe. Did I ever see her there? I don't know. I mean, I may have seen her at his apartment on Roscoe.
Mm-hmm.
You guys are right. This is just like Among Us.
I mean, would you remember if she snapped on you and just like, hey man, it's my man, you know, you get it, leave him alone, you know, blah blah blah, that kind of stuff?
You know.
I mean, would you remember an incident like that? I mean, because that would be like, what?
Well, you know, and maybe that happened. I mean, gosh, you know, it's been so long ago. I mean, that's not ringing a bell.
Mm-hmm. I mean, because the times I've seen you around at our office,
I'm crazy.
You know, but you're always kind of like real. I mean, you seem kind of bubbly.
Oh, you know, people think I'm really hyper, but I can get upset, you know, and then I forget 5 seconds later, you know how guys razz you and you go, you know, I mean, I've done that in the office, you know, but it's like, and then I'm, you know, I mean, people
water
think,
under the bridge.
Yeah, I mean, it's like people think I'm crazy, and then they think I'm crazy at home, and I'm, you know, I'm a hyper person at work. I'm, you know, I enjoy my job. I get excited. I enjoy the job. I've always enjoyed the job.
Well, one of the concerns I had is looking at some of the notes is some of Sherri's friends said that you and her were having a problem because of the John situation.
Well,
hold on.
Well, number one, I don't know who her friends are, because again, I don't recall if he did tell me where he met her.
I mean, it seemed like, yeah, you would recall something if somebody's going off on you, right?
I would think. I mean, I would think.
From what you're telling me is when you guys met at the hospital, I mean, you guys talked, but it wasn't, from what you recall, confrontational from either side?
I mean, I'm trying to, you know, turn my memory back, you know, and I can't even picture the, you know, the conversation. I mean, I can't even picture the conversation.
Well, let me ask you, I mean, at the hospital, it never got to the point where people were going, hey, you know, everybody go to your own corner type of thing?
I don't think so.
Nothing like that?
I don't think so. I mean, I really don't. I mean, if you say people said that, that's not ringing a bell to me at all. I mean, it's not. I mean, that's not ringing a bell to me at all.
Was there ever a time when you and Sherri were talking and John had to maybe go like, hey, you guys relax, you know, or anything like that?
I think so.
About, you know, ever going to her house and having a dispute like that?
You know, if I met her ever at his apartment, maybe. I mean, maybe I could have met at her apartment. I'm thinking that the hospital thing, that sounds familiar, that I met her there. I just can't say that I've ever, again, was I there with other people? I don't know. I don't think I ever met her there or him there, meaning one or the other. I don't think so.
Well, I guess basically what I'm asking is, you know, were you ever welcome to the house? Like, you know, hey.
Oh, come over?
Yeah, come on over. We're having a barbecue, you know, a dinner party, Christmas
The demon
party,
mama
whatever.
faces.
I don't know.
You know,
I'm just trying to think. You know, like I said, because there were so many of us that I have 10,000 pictures, okay? I'm a picture nut.
Mm-hmm.
10,000.
Well, yeah, I mean...
Do you remember what he drove?
Well, I know at one time he drove either a 240 or 260Z.
Any other cars that stand out in your mind?
I don't know how long he drove that 240 or 260Z for. And the only reason I say that is because I think I may have a picture of it with him in it.
Sherri's friend saying you guys had problems or words. and they got heated. You know, and the reason we're asking you is they had mentioned that an incident at her work had occurred, and they've also told us that an incident at her house occurred.
You know what?
And this is at her house during the period of time that they're married.
That's just not sounding familiar at all. I mean, you know what? That's just not sound. Again, if someone says that I was at her house and I had an incident with her, that just doesn't sound. Was John there? Did John say this happened? Because, and other people were there. I don't recall. I mean, it just doesn't sound, familiar.
And this is an incident where you showed up. You weren't supposed to show up, and things got heated.
At his house?
Yeah.
What?
That just doesn't sound familiar. I mean, no. It's not sounding familiar.
So
not at all.
Now you're saying not familiar because it's just something you remember, or it's just.
You know what? I'd have to say I don't remember, because I don't remember. That doesn't sound familiar.
I mean, would you remember something like that in your life?
Well, I would think, but
sort of drama involving, the other woman type of thing.
Well, did you ever fight with her?
You mean like we fought?
Yeah. Did you ever duke it out with her?
No, I don't think so. I mean.
You'd remember that, right? That would be pretty.
Yeah, I would think so.
Pretty specific.
Yeah, like I said, obviously, it just doesn't sound familiar. I mean, what are they saying? So I fought with her. So now I'm getting the jump, the leap. Excuse me, I haven't eaten. They're saying, okay, I fought with her, so I must have killed her.
This is known in psychology as reductio ad absurdum, or appeal to extremes. It's a form of argument that attempts to disprove a statement by showing that it leads to an absurd or impractical conclusion.
I mean, come on. I mean, that's, I don't even know who these people are. I can't even say I met any of these people. I mean, it's insane.
Would it be something you would remember? I mean, because I don't know if any other intense incidents in your life that have occurred, I mean, you'd recall those, right? I mean,
well,
like a use of force at work or a car crash, something you're involved in, you'd be like, yeah, I remember.
You would think I would remember. I mean, I would think if it was something that crazy. I mean, I can't say, you say, how many fights have you gotten into, in your life? I mean, a few at work.
Well, fights at work are kind of different because we've all had uses of force or whatever. But
well, I haven't even had even a lot of those. I mean,
right, but if you're actually, I
mean, I played.
Like if Dan and I got mad at each other and we threw blows in the squad room, I mean, 20 years later, I would remember it. I mean,
I would think I would remember it, but that's what I'm saying. That's not sounding familiar to me at all.
I'm looking at the notes, and these people are kind of. I mean, they're pointing the finger at you.
Well.
And.
I mean. That's not ringing a bell to me, so, I don't know, it's, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, that just sounds crazy to me.
Yeah, so you, offhand, you don't recall ever going into her house and having words and physically,
No.
attacking her attacking you?
No.
Nothing like that?
No, I mean, that's, no.
Nothing?
No.
You're right.
I mean, if you guys are claiming that I'm a suspect, then... I got a problem with, with that.
Okay.
Okay? So, if you're doing this as an interrogation, you're saying, hey, I'm a suspect. Well, now I got a problem with, now you're accusing me of this? Is that what you're saying?
We're trying to figure out what happened, Stephanie.
Well, I'm just saying, do I need to get a lawyer if you're accusing me of this? You
don't have to. I mean, you're here of your own free will. I mean,
no. I know, but
I mean, you're not under arrest. You can walk out.
You can leave whenever you like.
Well, but, I'm trying to give you some background of how I knew him, and now you're telling me that somebody's saying that we had this big old fight, and I don't even know what you're talking about. And I don't want to get in trouble for something that I didn't even do, or you're saying I did something.
Okay.
We understand.
I mean, how would you guys like it if the tables were turned on you?
I understand. No.
No, that's what we're telling you. I mean, you're free to go whenever you want. If this makes you uncomfortable and you want to,
now you're starting to make me uncomfortable.
The thing is, I mean, detectives did what they could at that time on the crime scene. Okay, and the burglary thing you're talking about, that is an angle that they looked at. I go, but now we're looking at everything else on the case. Because nobody was ever arrested on the case.
I don't know that or not.
Okay. Now, what we'd like to do is, obviously you know about all the DNA stuff and things of the nature that, you know, gets done on cases nowadays. You know, if we asked you for a DNA swab, would you be willing to give us one?
Maybe. Because now I'm thinking I probably need to talk to a lawyer.
Okay.
I mean,
well,
because I know how this stuff works, okay? Don't get me wrong, you're right, I have been doing this a long time.
Yeah.
And I wish I had been recording this because now it sounds like, you know, there's, you know, you're telling these people saying I'm fighting with her, and now it sounds like you're trying to, you know, I've been doing this a long time.
Yeah, we know.
Okay?
Can I just drop
and
this
now
stuff?
it almost sounds like you're trying to pin something on me.
No,
now I got that sense.
Well, what it gets to on these cases, and you know it as well as I do, our job is to identify and eliminate suspects.
I can't believe this.
So if we ask you to the point to give us a DNA sample, a buccal swab, so we can identify or eliminate you, would you be willing to do that?
Maybe. Because I know this.
Well, that's where we're at too. I mean, because right now, from looking at the evidence, it's, you know, it's possible we may have some DNA at the location.
That's great.
And we're going to do what we can to try to put this thing together. And your name's in the book. These people are pointing at you for whatever reason.
I don't know why. That's just crazy. I mean, that's absolutely crazy.
And it would be irresponsible on our part not to look at it.
I know. You guys have to do your job, and I guess I'm going to have to contact somebody. So.
That's fair.
I mean, because I know how this stuff works. I mean, I just can't believe it.
I mean, we understand that. I mean, if we were in your position, I mean, we would feel the same way.
I just can't even believe it. I mean, it's just, I mean, I'm shocked. I'm really shocked that somebody would be saying that I did this. I mean, we had a fight, and so I went and killed her. I mean, come on.
Okay.
All right.
Well, thanks for giving me the courtesy. I wish I recorded it.
Thanks for your time.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, Stephanie, take care.
All right.
Come on, guys. What are the chances of that?
This is absolutely crazy.
Have a seat, Stephanie.
This is insane.
Okay. Give me 1 second.
Why is she going back?
Okay. Stephanie, you know you have the right to remain silent. Do you understand?
Yes.
Anything you say may be used against you in court.
Oh, she got arrested?
Yes.
You have the right to the presence of an attorney before and during any questioning. Do you understand?
Yes.
How is she arrested now?
If you cannot afford an attorney, one will be appointed for you free of charge before any questioning if you want. Do you understand?
Yes.
Do you want to talk to us right now?
No.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
This is crazy. This is I'm like in shock. I'm totally in shock.
Oh, because she said she got in a fight?
We, the jury, in the above entitled action, find the defendant, Stephanie Eileen Lazarus, guilty of the crime of murder of Sherri Rasmussen.
Do you think there's any way she would not get caught here even without this interview? If they had all the evidence and witness accounts beforehand, they would probably ask for a DNA sample anyway. I don't think they had any. Wait, well, what did they present for evidence? They have circumstantial evidence of her DNA on the scene. That's it. I mean, I guess that they've got eyewitness of them being in a fight, but they don't have anything like of her actually murdering the person, right? The DNA was in the bite mark. Maybe it's enough. Maybe that would have been enough. It feels like it couldn't have. It feels like it wouldn't have been enough. Otherwise, they wouldn't have gone through the trouble of talking to her, no?
Again, words are feeble tools for describing these impacts. But there are so many moments and so very many tears. And the fact that Sherri's death occurred because she met and married me brings me to my knees.
Stephanie Lazarus was sentenced to 27 years to life for the murder of Sherri Rasmussen. She is currently being held inside the maximum security unit of the Central California Women's Facility.
Damn. Remember to hit that like and subscribe, and don't forget the notification bell so that my videos show up right in your feed.
Stand out in your mind.
Hmm.